Direct to you from the Oneida Lake Riding Gun Club.
It's the new Oneida Lake Show. It's the new Oneida Lake Show. Cause the old one wasn't good enough. Cause the old one wasn't good enough.
Sponsored by
Anglers
Bay,
Yeah.
Bartow Road, Baiting.
Tackle.
Welcome everybody to the new Oneida Lake Show. I'm here as always with Scott over from Lakeside Outfitters. Scott, how's everything going at the shop for you?
Been slow this week.
Yeah, it has been. A lot of wind, especially, Thursday we had some storms, Friday, lots of wind, Saturday, wind again. But we do have kind of an interesting show tonight. We've got Matt on. He's our bottom bouncing expert. He's going to show us his rod later and talk about everything like that. But anything going on, I mean, Walleye Wednesday is still doing they're having great crowds for that. You were out there. What happened there last week?
Small eater size fish mostly, an occasional 3-pounder coming in, but last, 3-4 weeks been definitely nosediving, but a lot of it has to do with the west side of the lake slowing down. Everything's kind of moving east, so that's been a big part of, I think, why we're seeing it. And, the bottom bouncing game is kind of slowed down for a lot of these guys. So
Right.
they're fishing weeds, but you're gonna find more eaters in your weeds. Your 15 to 20 inch range, where these guys are out looking for bigger fish, so they're not really doing that as much. I mean, you get about a split crowd on it.
Right. I mean, I've had my guys they're bringing fish in pretty steady. Same thing, walleye, pretty good, nice range off the drop off. They are getting perch mixed in there. A lot of white perch mixed in as well, especially between here and Godfrey Point. So that's been interesting. Bass stuff, it really, we don't have a lot of action to report on it. And
No.
we're starting to get people pre-fishing for the tournament.
I mean, last week's event, it was pretty piss poor results, honestly. Winning bag was 16 pounds, so you look at the results, and there wasn't too many guys even catching fish. So
I think, with all the guys pre-fishing, though, things are probably going to change between now and after Labor Day. So it'll be really interesting to see how that shakes out. And we are going to have some bass guys on shortly. We've got that set up too. So we're going to call our friend Rick out too. But other than that, we're going to get Matt on real quick, and he's going to show you. Scott is going to take it from here.
all right, so Matt, first things first. Your first time really fishing this lake a lot all summer long. What are your thoughts?
First full season was good. Fishing was pretty good all the way through. It's still been good. I mean, from what I've heard years past.
Yep.
Good summer bite. Last year I had a tournament here in summer. I think it was in July. The bite wasn't anywhere near what it is this year.
So you're staying down on the west end of the lake, an area that you're really just getting to learn. What kind of stuff are you learning this year that hasn't really come into effect in the last few years that you've been up here?
Well, from Great Lakes region, so as you can assume, I do a lot of bottom bouncing, trolling, stuff like that. So getting into some of the jigging and blade baits and really trying to key in on structure and weeds and casting harnesses. I mean, it's been a learning curve. So
What technique are you finding when you're jigging has been most effective for you? What are you going out and targeting that might be different from fishing Ontario?
Well, I mean, Ontario is a whole different animal altogether, just from the current and the depths that you're actually jigging and stuff like that. Our jigs and stuff like that in Ontario are huge compared to what you guys use. I mean, we're using 2-ounce bucktails and monsters.
Well, the depth that you guys are fishing is a lot deeper too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. As far as different technique, you're doing a lot more like casting into the shells and stuff here. So you really got to kind of play around with your retrieval and stuff like that. I think retrieval is probably like the biggest.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed from the last few times I've been out. I mean, you definitely got to change up retrieval for every. I mean, I'm getting guys telling me we're actually right out in front of here. They're using sonars and they're not jigging them whatsoever. They're basically swimming them along the bottom. That's the only thing they want.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny that you said that because earlier this spring on Erie, I went out perch fishing and I had some of the Raja blade baits with me, and that's all I used. And I was casting, and I was literally catching as many fish as those guys were catching them with perch rigs, with shiners. And it was opening weekend of walleye, so I'm like, man, I'd really love to get a walleye in opening weekend. It's so the last cast. I had to cast a different direction because we had some boat traffic coming in. So I casted the opposite direction off the opposite side of the boat. And I kind of did just that. I kind of just slow reeled it. I didn't pop it. I just kind of slowly reeled it in. And sure enough, it was an awesome sized walleye. I mean, I would say probably a 30-inch walleye for sure.
It seems like a lot of guys are doing the same thing with some of our bigger rod shot jigging minnows. They're doing the same thing like 12, 14 feet in the weeds where they're not actually jigging it.
Yeah.
They're swimming it and they're actually catching really good fish that way.
Yeah.
Which it's, I mean, I've always jigged them. I've always either vertically jigged them, cast them, and jigged them. I mean, I'm always learning too, but I thought that was interesting technique. And
it is because, like you said, anytime that I've ever messed around with glide baits or jigging rafts and stuff like that, it's always been a vertical presentation. I've never really tried casting them and just reeling them in. So yeah, it's definitely different. It's definitely a new learning curve, but it's fun.
yeah.
It gets you outside of the trolling.
Oh yeah.
The trolling box that everybody gets in, and so it's cool. It's a different way to fish for it.
Yeah. So last Sunday was basically leg 3 of Oneida Lake Walleye Trail tournament series. What did you do to get your fish, and how did you have to deviate from your plan? I mean, the weather changed probably 3-4 different times throughout the tournament, which seems like that's been the case every tournament.
Yeah. So this year, it seemed like 1 o'clock rolled around, and here came the wind. And next thing you know, you're trying to run across the lake, and you're in 3, 4, sometimes even the occasional 5-footer.
Yep.
And it really made it tough. And it was almost every tournament.
Every tournament there was 3, 4 different weather changes.
Yeah.
Whether it was downpour, whether it was thunder, whether it was. I mean, the last tournament was huge. You had huge chop out there. I mean, that wasn't even. That wasn't even right, but it seems like it's almost like the running joke amongst these guys. Like, well, we know we're getting something. It's going to be nasty for these tournaments. So, curious to see what happens to the Tournament of Champions coming up in September, what they get, because based on the first 3, it's definitely going to be something different.
Yeah, and this weekend, it followed the same pattern.
Yep.
I mean, we went out this morning to do a little bit of fishing, and sure enough, noon to 1 o'clock rolls around, and here comes the wind.
Yep.
And it's, you get stuck. You get stuck because you're trying to take cover. You're not able to get to some of the spots that you really would like to give a try and explore. But you got to do what you got to do. For our tournament last week, we had our 5 fish at probably 10 o'clock. We stuck to our game plan. Early morning, we went right to our spot that we knew we were going to start off at. It worked out. We got our 5 fish on, and it kind of seemed like this year there was a pattern to where the bigger fish were coming off points that had deep water around them. Maybe not right on the point, but in the vicinity of like Lewis Point, Shackleton Shoals, points like that. So we kind of wanted to explore some of those later on in the day, and the wind kicked up. And
Yeah, you weren't getting there. After,
no,
after 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
You're spending a lot of drive time.
Yeah. So what we had planned on to basically swing for the fence and hope for that bigger fish. We didn't get a chance to do it because unfortunately the wind picked up, but it happens.
So for all the viewers out there, out of all of your spots you fished, if you don't mind me asking, where did you have the most success at? So I mean, we get a lot of people viewing. Try to throw them a bone here.
For last week?
Yeah.
Last week, it was the south side of the islands, the south side of Frenchman and Dunham's Island. There's a weed line that runs about 12 feet of water. You start getting like spotted weeds.
Yep.
And it's still holding true
Oh, yeah.
for this weekend. So if you guys get out this weekend or even any time throughout this week, I would imagine that it's probably going to hold up for a while anyways. But yeah, you get in that like 12 feet of water, it seemed like, and you cast inward towards the islands and with casting harnesses, and they worked wonders. I mean, they were great.
How many fish do you figure you got over there?
Oh, we had, I would say, we probably packed up and left that spot around noon when we were going to go look for some of the bigger fish. And I would say that we had 20 fish.
Okay.
Yeah, 20 fish by noon.
Yeah, it was definitely a hot area leading up to it. It's just finding the right day,
Yeah.
getting the right size fish.
Yeah, so I mean, it wasn't anything that was going to obviously win us a tournament. But it got our 5 fish in the boat. Decent fish. I mean, if you guys are going out to fish for limits to eat, they're awesome size fish. I mean, 16 to 18 inch, the occasional 20.
Okay.
So, nice size fish.
One last thing, then we'll be done here. You've been getting a lot of private messages on Facebook. Pete's been getting some messages from people asking, how are you doing your rigs? Because a lot of people, they have an idea. Some people, they may not know.
Yeah.
I know you guys do some different stuff out in Western New York, but
Yeah.
a rig is a rig, in my opinion. It's just adjusting the weights. What are you doing?
So there's a couple of things that I do with my setup that makes it a lot easier. So the simpler that you can make the setup, it's going to equate to more time fishing. Less time messing around trying to, adjust stuff or stuff like that. So what I use, and this is just personal preference, but I use Icon's bait casting rods. Some people use spin reels. I used to use a spin reel. Bait casting rod is much simpler. It's awesome for bottom bouncing. And one of the things that makes it awesome is the reel. I use Quantum Energy. The thing that makes it so cool is this flip switch. Mm-hmm. And you can get the flip switches for a variety of different reels. I mean, sometimes you won't be able to find them in the stores, but most of them make it. So what the flip switch allows you to do, I'll show you real quick here, is if you had this off, say you're trolling around, and when you're bottom bouncing, you're always going over different structures. You're making transitions from mud to rock, fishing points, fishing drop off, stuff like this. So you're constantly changing your depths, constantly reeling in, letting line out. So on your traditional bait casting reel, when you hit this button down, it's going to open your bail, and it's going to stay open until you turn it.
Back in place,
So, and captains, if you don't fish this way, especially you guys, if you have that fob in your hand for the trolling motor, you're going to love this. You hit this flip switch on. Now, when I hit this down, I hold it, and it releases the bail. It opens the bail. Now, as soon as I let go of that, the bail's locked again. So there's no reaching over with your other hand.
Yeah, it's a nice little feature you got there.
So I got my fob in this hand, I'm controlling the boat, and I never have to let go of that to mess around with this. It's a one-hand deal. I just pull in some line to reel it up. I hit the button, hold it, let it down, lock it, and then let go. Another cool thing about that is a lot of the times when you let your bail open, you let that line out and let it slack up, a lot of times that's when the fish is going to hit. So now instead of having an open bail where it's I can just release it quick and it's closed. Another thing that helps me is when I set my drag on this, I always set it a little bit loose because I like to give a decent hook set. It's just something I do. And I like the bail to break when I hook into that fish. I don't want it to be stiff and rip. Their mouth is very soft in some spots, and what you do is you actually rip the flesh of the mouth, and you'll end up losing the fish. So I have that so it always lets off once I get that hook set in there. Another important thing is the line. I use braid, I use 20-pound Power Pro. Again, that's just my personal preference, but the braid is awesome. There is zero stretch with braid, which equates to amazing sensitivity. You will feel every transition from mud to gravel, every little bite. It's just so much more defined. Another plus with running braid is 20-pound braid is roughly equivalent to 6-pound mono in diameter. So the thinner the diameter, the less drag you're getting, which equates to the less line you need to let out to hold bottom. So it makes holding bottom much easier. And the last thing is your bottom bouncers. There's a rule of thumb. It's supposed to be 1 ounce per every 10 feet of water. So if you're in 20 feet of water, you're roughly 2 ounces. If you're in 30 feet, 3 ounces, so on and so forth. I kind of veer a little bit off that. I try to run as light as I can get away with and still be able to hold bottom. I feel it kind of gives more of an edge on the fish feeling, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you're fishing 30 plus feet of water out here, you can get away with a 2 ounce bottom bounce.
Yeah. So I mean, you're very little current here. Obviously, unless the wind picks up, I mean, you're going to be able to hold.
Yeah, you better have some stuff in your box just to make sure. Especially for tournaments where, like you said, we had all those different weather changes. So, I mean, that's my piece of advice. Make sure you got a variety of them. But I wouldn't really go anything less than an ounce, and I probably wouldn't go with anything more than 3 ounces.
Yes, yeah,
for here at least.
Exactly. So if you're fishing maybe the Great Lakes or Erie, like, you know, in 70 feet of water, you might need something more. But other than that, I mean, you're gonna get away with 1 ounce to 3 ounce.
Yep.
That's pretty much what I got on there. So, but yeah, that's the basic setup. That's stuff that's helped me. Also, the harnesses and stuff like that. Slow death hooks have been awesome. They have really changed harness fishing. I mean, just the action of the worm in the water, it's absolutely amazing.
Oh yeah, you noticed it just using casting harnesses.
For sure. Even with casting harnesses, worked phenomenal. So, I'll be looking forward to next year, really getting to know some more casting spots.
Yeah, that was one of my major adjustments with casting harnesses. I said, you know, I'm losing way too many fish.
Yeah.
With just a regular hook. As soon as you switch up to a slow death hook, I feel like you're landing a lot more. Yeah. You're going to go through more hooks because of the pliability of the slow death hooks, but either catch a fish or lose a fish. I mean, I'd rather be catching than replacing hooks than losing a lot of fish.
I kind of feel too, though, like even if you do get like snagged up, it's almost kind of beneficial to have a little bit of play like in that hook, because then it really, at least if your hook gets bent, you just replace the hook or you straighten the hook back out. You're not losing your whole rig, you know. Otherwise, you hook one of the other hooks and you're breaking everything off, and then you're starting from scratch again. So,
all right, well that's about it. But one last thing that I'll say is, you know, coming up next week, we'll let you know. But we're gonna have a email address that you can ask questions about. We'll let you know what that is next week. And if you have anything, either myself will answer them, Matt will help out. I mean, any of our guests we have on, they'll help out, and we'll be sure to
help us out. absolutely send in your questions. If you have questions on rigging or even weekly reports on what's going on the night if you're coming here, gear that any of us use, anything. There is no stupid question, guys. Ask away. We will answer them. You may even see one of your questions get answered on the show.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that'll be pretty cool.
All right, so Scott at Lakeside Outfitters, as you know, Pete was on here earlier from Anglers Bay, and once again, our guest, Matt Madison. And Matt, I'm sure I'll see you in a few weeks, hopefully. And next time we'll be out on the water together as opposed to sitting here doing this. So take care, guys.
See you later.